Hey everyone, I'm Jen Kelly. I'm joined today by Ken, Dan, Ian, and Paul. And today it's all about that marketing, that CEO, that website, or that branding agency that burned you. We've got some good stories about that and some good stories about how to trust and find a marketing agency again. So we're just going to jump in, and I want to start with some of the drama here. So Ken, can you share any stories you've heard of marketing companies not delivering what they should have delivered?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, from my experience, it generally boils down to the fact that they've got people who are selling solutions that don't really know what they are.
Mm.
And it's because the people who are doing the selling don't have the marketing expertise and and the companies that maybe they're selling through, they train them and they do a good job of getting them to be able to talk about a specific solution. But is that the right solution for a customer? Is I think most of the time. I mean, we run in, and Paul can elaborate on this as well, but we run into situations all the time where it's just obvious that the marketing company's doing what's good for them, not for the client. And one of the easiest ways to tell that is when they move the DNS records away from the domain registrar. That just to me demonstrates technical incompetence on the marketing agency. There's no reason to do that, but it makes it a lot easier for the marketing company, and it's just a signal that they don't know the technical aspect of what they're doing. I hate to dish on anybody, I mean, because look, I mean, and maybe part of this is because I'm frustrated because, we've had a couple of clients turn over recently that really frustrates me. I'm really disappointed because we've done a fantastic job. We delivered kick-ass results. Um, and I would hope that they wouldn't say things about us in any negative way, because we delivered really great results for them. And I'm not 100% sure why they've decided to move on. So I'm a little thin-skinned about this, honestly, right now. Just because it's, this is an unusual situation for us. And, just to be brutally honest, it's not one that I like. I don't think it's because we overpromised and underdelivered. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you plot them out over the course of the year or 2 or 3 years we worked with the clients, I mean, the numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think the biggest thing is, there are marketing vendors and there are marketing experts and consultants. And, Ray Perry, who I had a chance to spend some time with in person yesterday, who kind of came up with this brainchild of marketing guides for small businesses anyway, he and I have talked about this for years. And I know it's a big thing that he uses for his positioning. Everybody can position themselves as a marketing vendor. I mean, if you put a phone number on a receipt that you print out at a cash register, hey, that's marketing, right? That's giving your website and your phone number out there on that sales receipt. Well, yeah, there are a lot of people who can do a lot of little bitty things like that, but really, when you're talking about designing the right thing for a specific business, it really comes down to, you need to understand: are you buying performance or are you buying activity? And that is the biggest differentiator that I can encourage people to ask is, are you buying based on performance, generating a certain number of leads, position on, search rankings, things like that? Or are you buying on activities, meaning I'm buying X number of blog posts per month, I'm, buying X number of, sales funnels, whatever it is, but you need to understand what you're buying.
Yeah. That's a good segue, actually, because I have a question for Ian about this. And, even though the show is about being burned by, a marketing agency or whatnot, it really does take two to tango, right? There's a client, there's a vendor, that kind of thing. So Perhaps, as you know, Ken kind of alluded to a little bit, perhaps the client doesn't know what they're buying. They think they're buying performance. They really bought activity, and an illustration of that could be, and I've seen this before, where a client will go to maybe a brand first, a very strong branding company, get a website built, and it looks beautiful, but that company and their focus is not anything to do with SEO, with getting found. So they have a beautiful website that doesn't show up in any kind of search. And then at the end, the client might feel like, hey, like, you didn't deliver, I feel burned. But in that case, it's kind of like you didn't know what you were buying. So what are your thoughts on that? And how often are you seeing that, where perhaps, the client didn't know what they were buying, so they didn't actually get burned?
Yeah. It's an interesting premise too. Like, whose fault is it that you got burned? And just taking a step back, I want to say that there's a continuum of competence, right? And then there's a continuum of sales versus delivery. And I think that's where most of these issues fall into, is that in order to sell a website today, you have to build in SEO. If you don't talk about SEO, you're going to lose that sale. The challenge is that many people that are selling websites do not know SEO. And some of them are well-meaning individuals who have taken courses or have tried to educate themselves, but they are not SEO experts. Two, you've got the well-meaning people. Here, I should do it on this side. Well-meaning people, and and then you have the people that are just purely unethical, and they know they can't deliver that, or they think, we'll figure it out as we go. So that's just an example. So I think I think it's always incumbent upon the business that's selling to another business to be forthright, to not over deliver what they can actually do, and to clearly spell out. So this is incumbent on the business that's selling, but also on the business that's buying. You should get a very clear statement of work. You should understand clear expectations. So ask them and be forthright. If your website has to achieve X to be successful, like if you need it to generate leads, and part of that process is to attract organic traffic to your website, then you better darn well make sure that that's first of all, a core competency of the business you're hiring, but it's clear. It's a clear expectation. You've outlined it with them, and it's within the statement of work. And I think as this discussion goes, I think we'll here on this podcast, I think we'll dig further into kind of some of the details of how you can go about that. But I truly do think it's incumbent on both parties, because it's an agreement, and when you make an agreement, it's both parties agreeing to that. But I'm a hard hitter when it comes to this, because I have a soft heart for other business owners, and I absolutely hate seeing them get burnt or shafted or whatever you want to call it. And I've gotten far too many calls about this from business owners over the last few years, and I think it's an epidemic. Like, I think there's so little like
a barrier to entry. I mean, anyone can be a marketing company nowadays, right?
Yeah, and I think people are so bold in their claims that they just can't reach them, right? And so yeah, I think it's of epidemic proportions. In fact, it was so bad 2 years ago that I usually set up kind of a theme for my year. Like, here's my theme word, here's what, and my theme for that year was to save businesses from bad marketers. Like, that was my theme, because I had gotten so many frustrating calls from people that were like, Ian, you're like my last call. Like, I know marketing's important, but I've been burned 3 times now. I don't know what to do. And they just wanted somebody that would, first of all, listen to them and help them step off the edge and re-engage with marketing, usually at a small level, to kind of test to see if, there are trustworthy marketers out there. Sorry, I went on a long time there.
But I think you're speaking to something here that is so important for us, and also for people like us, which is, you cannot be, in my mind, an ethical marketing company without caring about your client, genuinely caring, like you actually like them, whether they pay you or not. You have to feel something. You can't see it as a transaction. I don't know how to do that. And so,
I disagree with that. Well, go ahead.
Well, you can disagree with that later, but I'm telling you, there's no way this business will ever operate with a client that I don't care about in some way emotionally. So that's why I think, you can just do the work, but I think what helps is what you just said, Ian, which is you have to feel that empathy for what they've been through, what they're trying to go through. And if you've ever been through anything like many of us have, where you've gone through this roller coaster as a small business owner yourself, you know that listening is at least 50% of what makes this relationship work. It's really that, and just being a counsel to them, not an executor of tasks. And that's the best, when you're doing that, that's the best part of this job is being able to, be their counsel and listen and advise them. And then, then you go do the work. So I will never take on a client that I don't have that care for, because it just doesn't make any sense. You see people many, many times being burned by people by agencies that clearly did not care, because they locked them out of a website that there's no reason why they should be locked out. They charged them extra because it was business, but that's a bunch of crap. I mean, so all of that comes from a transactional way of thinking about another client. And I don't believe the client's always right, but
there's a price tag to that too, right? Not every business can afford an agency. Not every business should have SEO. I mean, that is a big incorrect way of thinking. I mean, some businesses literally need a professional website that they have people who go check them out because they get most of their business from referrals, or like a restaurant doesn't need to have a kick-ass website. That doesn't make sense. Restaurants are not going to rank for SEO. Right. They need Google reviews. They need Yelp reviews. I mean, so we can't lump it into general categories. I mean, some businesses need to buy transactional services. That's just the reality of the transaction sizes and the volume of business that they have. They need to recognize it for what it is.
I don't mean a transactional service. I mean viewing the relationship as a transaction. The relation between agency and client should not be viewed as transactional. Like, I don't care, I'm just performing a service for you. That's done. I don't. That doesn't apply.
The reality is, and again, I think this is important for our listeners to realize. There are you as a consumer are either going to be put into a category of a client or a customer. A client means that you get extra attention, you get custom work. Customers buy solutions, they buy services that are and activities, and that's okay. I think the biggest thing is people need to know what they're buying and what they can afford to buy, and it's okay. If you're only able to buy that customer relationship, you still need to work. You're absolutely right, Dan. You've got to be able to work with somebody who has empathy and authority and understanding of where you're at with your business. That is absolutely critical. But that's the initial conversation. That may not be the kind of services and the delivery model you get ongoing based on what you can afford to buy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I think
agree with you guys.
I think we're saying the similar thing here. Actually, it's because I, out of necessity, a business coach said, Dan, you have a sheet of. We all have this sheet, actually. I think it's some form of it, where it says, "Here's what you can expect from us." And the coach of mine said, "Well, what about what you expect from them?" And so on the other side now, okay, here's what I expect from you, customer. And if you don't do this, this, and this, well, then there's going to be some challenges and issues. And
Yeah.
That kind of transparency that goes both ways is what is going to help a little bit, if you can, about what we're talking about here of solidifying a longer term relationship. This whole client is always right, master and servant, whatever you want, I'm your order taker. You go work with somebody else, because that ain't going to happen here. Like, it's got to be back and forth, and let's go into this as partners to help you.
Right.
So,
And Dan, I've started putting I agree wholeheartedly with you, what you just said. I actually put in my agreements, right, where here's the scope of work, here's what you should expect, measurement, that kind of stuff, whatever we're doing within that project or that engagement. But then I too include, like, here's what to expect from us. And some of it's very soft skill type stuff, and some of it's very like, these are pure expectations that you should expect from us. But yeah, we've outlined too within there that in order for us to achieve what we've just presented to you, and before you sign this document and pay us the first payment, you need to understand that our expectations in order to achieve this from you are going to be, you need to respond to us when we have requests within X amount of hours, usually a day or two.
Right.
And then there's some further details, but it's like, we're partnering with our clients. We're not, ramming stuff through them. They want a partner. At least the clients I work with, they want a partner. They don't want just a set it and forget it type of business for the most part.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great point, Ian. But I think it's really important for our listeners to understand that partner relationship costs money. And so
Absolutely.
if you're trying to find an SEO company that's going to do SEO for you for $150 a month or $400 a month, that's not a partner that's not a partner price. That's a transactional price.
Yes.
And our listeners need to know that that's what they're going to get, and they need to have their expectations set accordingly. Partner and client are words that imply custom and deeper relationship. Customer implies a more transactional, more activity-based relationship.
For sure. Yeah, and we do offer some very transactional services, especially related to like social media and some other services, where it's, you get this when you pay X amount, and it's usually a very low cost item. But we do that in order to draw people through their evolution of their business so that they can grow, right? But yeah, when it's something larger, and usually it's a bigger ticket item, and people need to have the assurances that things are going to get done. There, scope of work, clear expectations, really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be like, hey, you know what? I know it's month 2, and I haven't given you half of my logins and passwords so you can do my marketing.
Yeah.
But where are we at with
common.
stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I have a time machine? Maybe I can go back and get before we started, and I can get those logins and passwords from you.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can show up for meetings when you're supposed to. That'd be good. So those kinds of things, you gotta say it. I've had this conversation. You gotta say it, whether you are a marketing side or you are a client side. You gotta make sure, for the good of the relationship, that you say these things. We talk about accountability all the time. That's a buzzword almost, but you got to be, as an agency, ready to say to your client, what's up? Like, we got this stuff where we're supposed to meet, or you're supposed to review stuff, or you're supposed to give us information that we can't get because, I don't know, I can't hack into your social media and operate stuff for you. Like, are we going to do this or what? And so that's got to be like pretty hardcore in the beginning, not,
tough love.
Hey, let's go. But at the same time, if you don't do that, 2 or 3 months in, you're going to be hating life, both of you.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so adamant about it. And they're like, oh, Dan, you get that way with the client? Like, yeah, because I want to, actually like my life and job, rather than go, oh, if it's not too much trouble, can you get me your Google My Business? Like, come on, man. Like, seriously? That's what I'm talking about. It goes both ways.
Very
Well,
true.
and on the altruistic side, you want to produce results for them. It's not just about you, Dan. You want to produce results for them. I know you do, and you can't do that without that information.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
It's the
exactly.
easiest damn thing in the world to find. So go find it.
Oh,
Jeez.
right. Okay. Good
See,
stuff.
we're only like 2 questions into this whole thing. I knew.
Yeah, I want to bring Paul into this. Paul's been
Paul's
really
like,
quiet
oh my
here.
God, what
Paul's
is
like,
going on?
oh my God, maybe I'll just have some
Paul's like,
technical
I don't want to come
difficulties.
into this.
So Paul, sticking on to kind of inheriting a client that has been burned or says they've been burned by their previous agency or marketing support. What's the worst technical situation that you've seen?
Well, that's interesting because following up on that whole previous discussion is that usually the biggest issue is the client has to realize this isn't a technical, I'll get into that, but they have a responsibility. I think we covered that pretty well, but that happens throughout. It's not just in the beginning. That happens throughout the entire process. A lot of times, we have a client, I'm not going to say who they are, but they respond to nothing until they have something to bitch about. And
I think you should let it out, Paul. Just name names. It's okay.
no,
Ken's like about to have a panic attack. Don't do it.
but I agree with Dan and everyone that the client needs to understand that they definitely have a responsibility to be responsive. They have to, because we can't do our job without that. But when going back to the technical issue, Ken mentioned DNS records, and go into that a little bit. A lot of these companies do what's best for them, and what happens, without everyone's eyes glazing over, they'll move the names, or they'll point the name servers over to where the website's being hosted instead of keeping them with the registrar. The problem is when you do that, your MX records for your email are probably at the registrar, and you move those name servers, now the email breaks. So, and a lot of times they don't know how to fix that, or they don't care. And if they migrate email, they just created a problem that doesn't have to happen, because they don't want to go in there and add or change the individual DNS records. So that's probably one of the biggest issues, is getting the whole DNS record and name server straightened out.
Yeah, Paul, you and I obviously we work together, so we see, these situations happen. We've come across where there are multiple Google My Business pages that have been created because, a company has hired multiple people to come in and do different things. Nobody knows who those people are anymore, so you have to go through the process of requesting access. Then you have to consolidate those. We've seen that. We've seen multiple websites created for clients where they're actually competing against themselves now, because they're actually having multiple websites, and they're all trying to do different things, and it's watering down their SEO. It's confusing people because there are 3 or 4 different websites that are floating around out there. It's, not with any intention. It's just because it's what's easy for the marketing company to go in and do. So those, not having, they allow somebody else to set up their accounts for them, and they don't get ownership. They're not added as a Facebook admin. They're not added as the primary owner or owner of a Google My Business page. So when they sever that relationship, they have nothing. Those are the kinds of situations we see a lot, right, Paul?
Yeah, and
almost every customer to a T.
Google has tried to deal with this on their end, but it only works within the Google ecosystem. You get outside of that, and that's your website. It used to be that your www and non-www, well, they are 2 different websites potentially. Those are 2 different URLs, and then you have HTTP and HTTPS. So within Search Console, Google has tried to deal with this by going to a domain-based entity, if you will, and it incorporates all of those unless you choose not to. But like I said, you get outside the Google ecosystem. If your www isn't properly redirecting to your non-www, you potentially have two websites out there, and that's going to cause problems. And that's a big issue we see. And I guess the other thing would be that things move fast in the SEO world, and Google's constantly updating things. So there's a lot of old, outdated information. And I think to some degree, the client shares some responsibility in this, is that websites don't get updated. Structured data 3 years ago was barely a thing, didn't really matter. Now it's a huge issue. And a lot of the client says, well, I paid for this website 5 years ago. Why do I have to update it? Well, because things change. And that's, I guess, it may or may not be a technical thing, but websites have to be updated. It's not a one and done thing. It's, hey, I paid to have this website built 20 years ago. Why should I change it? Well, because it's outdated.
Yeah, that's a really common one. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have to jump back real quick. That conversation that Paul just brought up, one of my favorite things that I've ever seen a marketing company do is they were writing blog posts for a business, but they weren't putting them on the business's website. They were putting them on a website that they stood up that was helping them rank.
Yeah.
Not for the client. Now the client got a little bit of side benefit because anybody who saw that blog post maybe found out about that client, but it certainly wasn't helping them from an SEO perspective. I was stunned. I'm still stunned every time I think about that one.
And can I share one?
Canonical URLs. But
so this one is actually less technical, but had a huge impact to a business, and it was avoidable. And I think when all of us see some of these technical issues, we're like, these were avoidable. Like 2 years ago, not today, 2 years ago. I had a client that hired me to do SEO. So we were deep into their website, and we were looking at things, and we were making recommendations. And the client came to me and he said, hey, the reason I was coming to you for SEO is we haven't gotten one lead form in 2 years since the website was built. And it was a beautiful website, photography-based website for a photographer and videographer. And so we looked indeed into the form, and the form was not connected to anything. And I'm like, so the cautionary tale to any business out there is, if you are not getting any form completions, try filling in your own forms regularly, like once every month, once every few months. It takes a second, but at least it will tell you whether your form's still working, because sometimes these things can break on their own when there's updates to plugins and whatever, but this one was never connected. So cautionary tale.
Oh, painful. All right, Dan, this is a fun one. What are some outlandish claims that you've seen marketing companies make that you just shake your head at because there's no way they could possibly make those dreams come true?
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to LaDawn in Fort Lauderdale. Thank you for your great dialogue and timely topic comment. Appreciate that. So don't forget, folks, you can jump in on the comments live here. The outlandish claim, you'll be on page one, or, I'll get you to page one in no time kind of stuff, is ridiculous. Like, you have do you work at Google? Like, is Google's brain like somehow tapped into your computer or something? Like, how would you know that? Like, you don't know that. You're just kind of claiming it, and nobody actually knows that for sure. You can't guarantee anything. So
it's against Google's terms of Paula.
Yeah.
And yet, guys, you can rank for you can rank. I can get you on page one
for something nobody
for keywords that don't matter to anybody, like that, because nobody's trying to rank for those, and that's what a lot of those companies do.
Right.
Reputation management is the new snake oil, which is, hey, we can get all this stuff removed that I get things from law firms. Our client was busted for blah, 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 blah. Can you get this removed? No, I can't. Not right away anyway. if your client did something bad, I can't like wave a magic wand, but yet there are people out there who are going, we can just take a magic eraser to the search results and we can get rid of all that. No, you can't. Like, who's telling you that? And there are people saying that. So those kinds of outlandish claims are there. And then there's the one that, quite frankly, I don't think anyone in the universe can live up to, which is we are the best at these 17 different things. Not like kind of good, but here's the laundry list of everything we do. We're the best in every single one of them. Like, no, you can't be. It's impossible. And even if you were truly the best in all of those things, some of those people would leave to start their own company if you're really the best. So you will be the best in that for about 2 seconds before they leave. There's no way in the world you can live up to that claim. Instead, why don't you think about why people come through the door for you? Like, for example, we do a lot of things. Everybody on this call does a lot of things, but we recognize what they come in the door for first. When people come in the door for us, I don't know, maybe it's brand strategy or content marketing, 2 of the things right there. Doesn't mean that they won't still do SEO or they won't do reputation management or pay-per-click. But I don't go out there and go, we're the best in all of this stuff, because what they're doing, they're not selling anything other than convenience. That's like, we're the best because we have all the stuff in this store. Like, it doesn't mean any of the stuff is actually good. It just means like you're Walmart. Like, you just have all this stuff. Like, yeah, we provide a service. So what? It doesn't mean you're any good at it. But they claim that they're the best at it. And people actually buy this convenience bull crap, like one-stop shop. We are a one-stop shop to the extent of we can handle a lot, but we don't claim to be the best at all things. We bring in people who are the best so we can be the best. And that's more truthful. They go, when they say, Dan, can you do all of these things? Do you mean me personally? No, because I don't have 5 different brains. But I bring in people who do these things, and that's a better, more truthful and transparent way to go.
That's a good segue. That's a good segue. Yeah. I mean,
well, isn't it better anyway? Like, why instead of blowing smoke up people's you-know-what, why don't we try to work with each other instead of pushing each other out? And you will know when here's the telltale sign of an agency that's full of snake oil. They try to push out somebody who's already in there, and I don't do that. Like, if you try to push somebody out who's already a good relationship and they just can't do everything, and you go, oh, we can do that. They don't have to, you don't need them. Then I don't want to know that person. I don't want to work with them. They're whatever. Like that, I have no time for someone like that. A real agency who cares about the client will say, you know what, they're good. We can work with them. It's fine. We can partner with them because they know they can't be the best in everything.
Well, I was going to say that's a great segue to. I have a question for Ken on that. I mean, the pace of marketing is just getting faster and faster, and there's just so many more new things, more new channels, more new ways to reach the end customer or your clients. Do you think that part of this, of perhaps clients feeling burned, is that their own agency may not be able to keep up with what's next and what they need to do?
Yeah, I certainly think that that's a distinct possibility. The other thing I think that's going to be happening here is because of the COVID economy, a lot of people were displaced from mid-level marketing positions because, in a time of any kind of economic distress, businesses usually look to lean their operations as much as they can. So there are going to be a lot of consultants who are going to be coming out there. I see it all the time where, oh, hey, I can go sell this reputation management tool. Hey, I can go sell this social media solution. And look, I get people are trying to make a living, but they're not marketing experts doing what they're doing. They're trying to get established as a tool vendor so that they can get a toehold in some things. So yeah, there will be a lot of overpromising, and I think it's it's a really dangerous environment right now, because I think there's going to be a proliferation of people who are coming out of the woodwork for that. Business coaching services, marketing services, I think those are prime targets. But there are a lot of changes that are going on. I mean, right now, one of the biggest things is with the world of marketing automation. And we talked about this a little bit with the Chatty Cathy session that Ian did, about chatbots versus text focused web chat widgets and things like that. And yeah, there's going to be definitely people who can who are going to want to try to sell you something just because it's the cool latest greatest thing. For me, if I was going to bank my business on success, I would want to focus on the tried and true and the proven and the stuff that we know works, not the latest greatest breaking technology that's out there. So while maybe I fall trap to that because of what I do it because I spend a lot of time testing and vetting tools. And I'm in a situation where I can afford to do that, so that I can really focus on building and delivering the best solution I can bring to the client. But I wouldn't want the clients to go out there and buy that. I mean, that's crazy. Just because it's the latest, greatest, coolest thing, and just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's, you mentioned automation there, Ken, and I think that's a really scary one, I think, for us as marketers, because it's I think that's very attractive to some people when it comes to tools, and they'll say, well, gosh, one of our listeners asked me recently, a client of mine is asking about an automation tool, and he wants to automate a whole bunch of connections on LinkedIn. Well, that could get you banned. That could get you banned from LinkedIn. Just because there are tools out there doesn't mean that LinkedIn is going to be okay with them.
Yeah. Instagram followers, the same thing.
Yeah. You got to be really careful. And, as a marketer, you have to at least say, I really would not do that. So yes, there are those out there, and they will have great reviews and people will say they're awesome. But if you're worth anything as a marketer, you got to warn these people that just because it sounds good, whether it's an agency tool, whatever, those things that go against terms of service the only person who's going to pay the consequences is going to be that client. It's not going to be the agency. It's not going to be the consultant. It's going to be the client. And you got to watch out for that stuff.
Yeah. There is some hope out there, though, and I wanted to kind of tag team the next question between Ian and Paul. Paul, I'd like you to take the more technical on Ian. I wanted you to take the more client-side creative. So, guys, what types of questions should a client ask their next marketing agency as they're going out to try vet one that will do what they need?
Paul, would you like to start, or shall I?
Go for it.
All right. So yeah, when you're vetting an agency, be very specific. First of all, be specific about what it is you're hiring from them. Remember, before I talked about clarity, you need to be clear on what you want and what expectations you're looking for. The reason I say that when you're vetting them is because if you're hiring an SEO agency or somebody to do SEO for you, you need to be very specific about the questions you ask them. You need to understand whether they're going to be building out content for you, working on your Google My Business, whether keyword research will be driving their efforts. Like, those are key questions I would be asking myself if I were hiring me, because I see too many people talking about SEO, but doing none of this stuff that you have to do in order to be successful at SEO. And then measurement questions, like how will you measure the success of this program and make sure that that measurement of success is, first of all, real and relevant, but it aligns with what your success is. Because if it's activity and you want results right there, that's like, at least dig deeper with that agency. Things like, if you're hiring a website developer, show me some live examples. I want testimonials. I might want to talk to a couple references so that I can actually ask them, first of all, I was going to say, you should ask them what their process is, regardless of what type of service you're hiring them for, because you need to understand there's a method. What's the word?
Method to the madness.
Method to the madness. That it's clearly outlined, that they know how to get you from point A to point B, and it's clear, and you always know where you are along that path. And that's where references can be super helpful, because you can then dig in a little bit deeper. Certifications. Do they have certifications? Have they actually gone out? So there's no overarching certifications to our industry, but there's certifications from relevant, respected bodies out there, like Duct Tape Marketing, like Digital Marketer, like some other places. Watch out for kind of the chintzy ones, but like look for certifications where businesses are continuing to do professional development in their field that they're selling you on. Case studies. Look at reviews. Look at their reviews from a results standpoint, not just hey, these guys are great, but that they delivered what they said they would deliver in the particular area you're looking. So, those are some of my low-hanging fruit of how to vet agencies. But yeah, be careful. And for some people who are very bold, it's easy to ask the tough questions. For some of us who are gentler spirits, you might be more cautious and be like, oh, I don't want to upset them because I'm a nice person. Upset them. This is your time. This is your time to dig, because this is really important, not only for money, because you're going to be spending money with these people and your time, but the opportunity cost. If you make a bad decision here, not only will it drain you of resources, it will keep you from the opportunities that a good business or a good agency could actually help you achieve.
This may be kind of a transition, but Ian, I'm surprised you didn't say anything about the TOPA here, the total online presence, because that's a really great way to get an idea of if if a company you're going to be working with, that's, you might want to spend $1,000 with them to find out, what do they know, how do they work, how do they think, what is their assessment of your current situation, what's their plan to get you better. That's going to be great money to be spent. And so, there are a lot of, look, we offer free, analysis tools off of our website as well, but that's really just to begin the conversation. But I think that paid engagement, it may be uncomfortable for you to spend some money, but it may save you a whole lot more money and heartbreak, down the road.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, Ken. I've actually done, I don't do as many of these today because there's not enough Ian to spread out, right? So, but I occasionally I do free website reviews for prospects, and that is my opportunity to prove to them that I bring value to the table and that I know what I'm talking about. And I've won clients that way because they've responded by saying, nobody has ever done anything like this to me. They were just asking for my credit card instead of, giving something before they even got anything. Mm-hmm. So that was valuable. But yeah, Paul, I
was going to say, but yeah, Paul, any of the technical things that they should be asking?
Lots. But this is always kind of a challenging subject, because going back to what Ian was saying about content, none of this stuff exists in a silo. If you're writing content, you need to build the SEO, the on-page SEO into that content. And a lot of times, content writers, web designers, they may not understand how to do that. So it might be good, informative content, but if it's not written also from an SEO perspective, it may be very difficult to rank. And the other challenge is asking technical questions when you're not a technical person. You don't understand, because I mentioned structured data earlier. It's an important thing now. Are they gonna deal with that? Site speed, Google's latest algorithm, site speed and user experience. Are they going to deal with image compression and HTTPS? I still see websites out there with HTTP. Are you going to fix that? Canonical URLs. A lot of websites, they have very similar content, and it may be necessary, but Google may look at that as duplicate content, but you can tell Google what the canonical URL is, or what they should treat as the source and ignore the rest. And if you don't do that, they might just ignore all of it and not rank it at all. Site structure and internal linking. Do they have a plan for that? And what about security updates? That has to be dealt with as well. So there's a few things right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, that's where I think paying money to somebody to see if they really know their stuff is not a bad thing. It's probably the right step for most businesses to really take. You get what you pay for, right? I mean, if you're not prepared to pay for that initial analysis, if you're going to be talking about making an investment of $20,000 to $60,000 a year to help you grow your business through, some kind of an SEO program, you ought to do something to try them out first, so that you can cut them loose if they're not going to give you the answers that you feel like you need, and they're not going to help you understand what they're going to be able to do for you. So I just think that, the whole idea of the total online presence or something like that, from the marketing solution provider, which is my preferred term, or the marketing agency that you're going to be working with, I think that's a smart thing to do.
Absolutely. Dan, let's pretend that a client has taken Paul's and Ian's good advice and has found a great marketing agency, and things are off to a good start, and they've signed their charter and they agree to be a great client, and you agree to be a great partner. What are some of the things that can go on during the engagement, which keeps this relationship on the up and up, really, from both sides?
If I presented to you, and I've had the TOP, the total online presence, the try, if I've gotten the engagement, the one thing you don't want to hear me say is, well, I'm going to take off, but you'll be in good hands with so-and-so. You just let me know if anything comes up. My door's always open. I've seen advertising agencies do that. They do that all the time. And if you're a client, you don't want to be someone's handoff. You don't want to be handed off to Julie or Rick, the person who just graduated from college and is the very junior account executive. No offense to those folks, but that's not, if they're going to be in the room, you better damn well make sure someone senior is in there. And that's what happens. The creative director leaves, the CEO leaves, everybody else who's senior leaves. And then before long, that client is like, hey, what happened? Where are these guys going? Okay, we get you. Like, that really stings. And that is a mistake that happens within the first month. And I see it over and over and over again. So that can cause a whole problem right there. The other problem, though, is sometimes clients think everything that we ever needed to know about each other is covered in paperwork, and that's somehow communication, when the reality is that you have to have some non-negotiables. My non-negotiable is, if I can't talk to you in real time once a month at a minimum, preferably twice, we're not doing this. I don't care if it's a project. I don't care if it's a retainer. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a one-day thing. We will not work together if I can't talk to you live in real time at least once a month. Well, can I text you? No, you can't text me. You can't use carrier pigeon. You can't do any of that. It's got to be live. And the reason why is, and a client and an agency should buy into this, is you want the ability to do real-time question and answer that can't be solved in an email. Too often we see text, we see email, we see even recording sometimes, which is fine. Those are all great as supplements, but they are not replacements for the real-time conversation that makes a relationship work. And so you have to really, we are not mind readers, and we mess up too, all of us. So if we're going to mess up less in between this relationship, you, client, or us, agency, it's a conversation that really spells things out. the other thing, that I think we're all work in progress. I think having an agenda of a meeting or having a recap or both is something that, I know we're working towards here, is trying to not only save the recording, but also, trying to have an agenda or trying to have a recap at least to say, here's what we said, here's what we're doing, here's what your responsibilities, dates, etc. So those are the kinds of things that I think you really need in order to, but above all, you got to talk. If you don't talk and you just text or you just email, that's a real risk. I mean, that's a real, there's not a relationship. You can't do relationships with text messaging. You can't do relationships with email. Like that's never going to happen. So that's my 2 cents.
Teenagers might argue that point, but that's okay.
Those are our
Teenagers?
clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think that's just from experience. Is like, we can't be mind readers and we don't want to be mind readers. So spell it out for us. We have the tools, we can record everything, but you got to do it in real time. Like if you don't do it in real time, the gap is those questions. The questions fall through the cracks when you have emails and texts. Those don't get asked. And that's where relationships start to go from really high level and the honeymoon is over real quick. So the honeymoon may not last forever, but you can still have a really great feeling for a long time.
That sounds like a great place to wrap up. Thanks, everybody. And we'll be back next week with another great marketing topic.